Hello and welcome back to another episode of Crappy to Happy. How many times have you said you need to clone yourself to get things done? Well, guess what? This is me cloning myself, but there are so many other ways I am beginning to use AI to take work off my plate and free up my time and headspace as a solo business owner. If you're still just typing questions into ChatGPT and then working to edit the responses it gives you, let me be the one to tell you you're doing it all wrong. So what did you think of that? Could you tell AI Cass from Real Cass? That was just an example of professional voice cloning by AI. So I literally just uploaded loads of samples of my voice. It created my AI voice, and now I can feed it any text and it will just spit out the information in my voice. I think it's pretty good. I think there's a few words that sound a bit more Aussie than I sound, but maybe that's just me kidding myself. Maybe I actually do sound like that. It struggles a little bit with some of the Australian accent, but it's pretty good. And let me tell you that there are people who are creating their podcast using that kind of software. I know they are. And there are people who are making podcasts without a person at all, not even like me cloning my voice, giving it a script and reading my script in my voice, but manufacturing voices and making up personas and making up podcasts and publishing them. This is the world we are living in now. How many times have you been on social media and you've seen accounts getting loads of followers, usually fairly polarizing? They're usually politically motivated accounts. They're not even real people, and they've amassed hundreds of thousands of followers. Number one, that just says, I think there's a lot of people who are not very savvy when it comes to identifying what is real and what is not. But number two, even having said that, it's just getting more advanced. The technology is just becoming more advanced. So it will get better and better, and it will become harder and harder to distinguish what is real from what is not. And therefore, I understand why there are a lot of people who are quite anti-AI. Not to mention, there's a whole lot of ethical considerations as well. And I'm no expert in all of this, but some of those tech companies that are creating the AI have questionable ethical standards to begin with. But also in terms of the resources that it requires to even produce a response. Gallons and gallons of water are used to power AI every time you put in a question to ChatGPT, for example. So while I completely understand people's aversion to it, and it's a lot at the moment, I mentioned a few weeks ago that one thing that I've been noticing, quite apart from all the fake accounts out there and all of the AI slop that you see and all of the identifying what's written by AI with the M dashes, etc. What I had started to notice is that increasingly people in the online business space and people in online marketing and coaching and these sorts of people running courses, it was almost becoming non-negotiable to input some kind of AI functionality, some kind of AI support. To give you a couple of examples, you've probably seen this yourself, but there's a couple of courses, YouTube training, things like this that I've been in for years and years, but they're programs that I have lifetime access to. And there are courses that I have enrolled in more recently, coaching programs. At the very kind of elementary level, what I have seen is once you've done the work of deciding who this offer is going to be for and who you want to target, like you do the work, you do the thinking based on what you know about your expertise and your ideal customers and the work that you do and all of that, then take that idea and go to ChatGPT, for example, Claude, some sort of LLM, and give it these instructions. Type in these exact instructions. And it was like a scripted prompt, basically, but where you input into that prompt your own information. So it would be review this, blah, blah, where you would actually, copy and paste in the work that you had already done. And then it was asking the AI to review that or to give you some suggestions about that, or you have a think about it, you do your work, but also take this question, take this prompt, exactly these words, copy and paste my words and paste them into AI and ask it what it thinks. And just to help you with your idea generation, just to help you to think more broadly about how you might deliver this course or who might be an ideal kind of client that you might be interested to work with. So like I said, that's kind of elementary level. That's just copy and paste this script. I think what's probably been more common is you enroll in somebody's course or program, or you'll even just see, people online on Instagram or whatever, and it will be take my custom GPT. So they've already created a custom GPT, which you just click on and it opens up inside your ChatGPT. You save it in your sidebar and it has been pre-programmed to provide a certain output for you. So I've got one, for example, that is she's a woman who's like a TikTok coach, a social media coach, and she just churns out these custom GPTs. She says, okay, here you go, take this one and tell it what you do for your work, and it will give you a list of 100 possible topics that you could do videos on. If you're looking to cluster your content so that instead of just doing one video on this topic, you kind of make a batch of videos on the same topic so that when people click your profile, they will see that there is other content on the exact same topic, and so that will reinforce your expertise and your authority in that subject rather than posting a bit of this and a bit of that. She's got a custom GPT where it will give you a cluster. You type in one topic and it will give you 7 different angles or 15 different angles, to that same topic, different ways you could approach this same topic. So custom GPTs is kind of the next level. Now, the thing about custom GPTs is what they've done is they have refined the prompt and they have fed it certain information and certain knowledge and parameters so that they've trained this custom GPT to be an expert. So rather than that person doing the work of answering a question 100 times, you train the GPT and then 1,000 people can use that and anywhere in the world and access that expertise. Access the expertise of the AI, but in the very specific way that it has been trained by somebody who is an expert in that topic and told it what to generate in terms of a response. So we've got copy and paste this prompt. We've got custom GPT. They go on from there, like there are much more advanced agents, I guess, that are really, really highly trained. For example, one program that I was in years ago, which was all about doing a lot of work to really build a profile of who your ideal customer is and what is the problem that you solve, all the standard stuff with sales and marketing and etc. But it was a requirement in this course that you did loads and loads and loads of legwork and research to validate your offer and figure out who they are and where they are and what they're into, etc. So what this person has done is she's revamped her entire program and she's created her whole own AI studio where she has got AI agents that are trained to have a conversation with you. And so they just ask you the question, who's your ideal client? You put it in, and then they ask you maybe another couple of questions. So again, you're doing a bit of the work yourself, but you just feed in the basics and it generates this like 40-page profile of this person and what the niche that you should be focusing on and what the angles are and where you will find this person and how to pitch to this person and what this person's deepest desires are and what their fears are. So how you can craft all of your messaging and your marketing. So detailed and thorough because again, these agents have been trained in the methodology. So somebody has done the work at the front to train them so that then they can offer this to all of their customers as a tool that massively shortcuts all of that tedious, time-consuming work that has to be done to get you closer to the point where you can actually maybe have a chance of selling something. And this is the whole point, right? It's the time saving. It's the shortcutting of the process. It's still you having to input your own expertise, but there's massive time saving that can be achieved. And the level of the depth of information, the quality of information, because you are tapping into this second brain when you're using AI. So while I'm really aware that there are people who have no professional knowledge at all that can get AI to write them an ebook, write them a website, and create their social media and go and sell it, we're seeing more of that out there as well. But for the people who do know their stuff, I think it is really exciting. And for me, it felt like overnight. Like, I don't know if I'd been living under a rock. Obviously, we all have been, typing stuff into ChatGPT. There was a little bit of hesitation at first because it feels like cheating if you ask ChatGPT to help you to do something. For me, and I think for a lot of people, it's not about getting it to do the work for me, it's often about giving me a start when you're staring at a blank screen and the information's in my head. And so just getting over that starting line is just so helpful. But like I said, I think there was a lot of resistance initially. Apparently, I have heard that women particularly are very slow to take up AI. And I don't think we're any less tech savvy. I think it's probably that mentality that you should be doing it yourself. There's an ethical concern about it, or, some concern that you're shortcutting or cheating. I don't know. But suddenly I was seeing this everywhere, and everything was use this custom GPT or go to this AI studio that I've created, like everywhere. And it became very apparent to me very quickly that this was not something to be sleeping on. If you wanted to keep up, you probably needed to get on board with this pretty quickly. But how do you do that? What does that mean? How do you maintain that human connection? I guess, how do you use it for good? That's what I've been really diving into. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing with you what I have been learning. And this has been a deep dive for me. I have gone all the way in to learning how to use AI in my business. And the thing that really jumps out to me is how helpful this is, how life-changing potentially this is for a small business owner, for a solopreneur, for somebody who's working on their own. And I know a lot of these people, my clients are these people working on their own, overwhelmed, so stretched, doing everything yourself, just how much capacity there is to have things taken off your plate and in a really effective way when done properly, and just how much space this frees up, how much stress and overwork this potentially saves a small business owner, a service provider, somebody who's working with people, somebody who really wants to do good work in the world and is drowning in the admin and drowning in just all of the things. When you've got to be the salesperson, the marketing person, and you've got to be on social media, and you've got to be creating the content and working with the client and managing your diary, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think that the fact that it's a lot is also what keeps some people really small. People get very afraid to grow their business because growing their business means I'll have to hire more staff. Now, I have been in the situation myself where I have had people working for me. I've paid lots of people to do lots of different things in my business. And it does really add the pressure when you suddenly feel responsible, and even if it's only 5 or 10 hours a week or something, but when you feel responsible for making sure that somebody else gets paid, oftentimes I'd be paying them before I'd be paying myself. It can be a point of friction for a small business owner when you want to do more, you want to grow, you'd love to be able to work with more clients. But if that means that either one, I've got loads more work to do on myself, like loads more on my plate, or number two, that I have to hire somebody, be responsible for paying somebody, so therefore there goes all my profit potentially, or just the fact that you have to hire somebody, that's a process in itself. Finding somebody, training somebody, the time it takes to be able to get somebody else to do the work that you currently do that only you know how to do. And you can have all the conversations in the world about how you invest that time up front and it saves you hours down the track. We all know that it is easier said than done to not only find somebody who is really good, but then to actually spend the time to train them so that you can eventually step away. So what I'm saying is not that this is a reason that you shouldn't hire people. What I'm saying is that I know that this is a point of friction and that this is something that stops people from growing their business and potentially serving more people and doing better work. So I think that getting a handle on this AI, if you can train an AI assistant to do some of that work for you, they can do it around the clock. They don't need to be paid. They don't take sick days. And if you train them really well, they do a really good job. And so if you invest that time up front to train a bot instead of a person, the time and space and freedom that potentially gives you, again, like I said, to be more present, to do more of the work that you're actually really good at, the work that you love to do, the work that you want to be doing, that you're best at, because you've cleared off all of this other admin kind of stuff that a robot, frankly, can handle. And I can already hear people saying, well, that's all well and good, but how sad is that and how awful is that all of these people's jobs are going to be replaced? I mean, yeah, people said the same when computers were first invented. People had the same fear when the internet was developed. People had the same fear when manufacturing processes started being automated. We could talk about this all day. There's 1,000 examples of people's jobs disappearing as the world's moved on, things have changed. There'll always be another job. There'll just be a different job. Remember we went through that phase where everybody coming out of high school was like, oh, I've got to get into IT. Forget whatever else you wanted to study because now you've got to study IT and coding and all of this, all these .coms and all these, then we've got apps and this was the big boom, right? And now all of these coders are out of jobs because AI can write your code for you. But it will be the next thing, there'll be whatever comes next. But I think more to the point, what it has opened up is like more space for human connection. I think more and more people will be looking for that high quality human connection, the stuff that AI can't do. Well, I'm not even going to go down that path about people using AI for their therapy. Actually, no, I will. I will go down that path. I will go down that path. So something else that has really been in the news is people using AI for therapy. People get very bonded to their chatty chat GPT. Everybody's got names for their chat. Some people just call it chat. We feel like we develop a really human-like relationship with our ChatGPT because the more conversations you have with it, the more it gets to know you and it gets to know about you and it has a degree of memory of the conversations you've had before. And because it's programmed to be so human-like, it feels like you're talking to a friend oftentimes. Now, this has posed some serious ethical concerns because it's also obviously programmed to be sycophantic, like to agree with everything that you say. I mean, I think it's hilarious. The reason that we all love ChatGPT so much, or Claude, or whatever you're using, the reason we love them so much is because everything that you say, every idea that you suggest to it, I'm thinking of doing this, it will tell you that is a brilliant idea. That's a genius idea. Oh, that's perfect for you. That's amazing. And we all love that validation. But the problem is that sycophancy, how do you pronounce that? Sycophancy? The fact that it is so agreeable and so validating is a problem because people who have got serious mental health issues and who have not a strong grip on reality, sometimes people who are really living an alternative kind of worldview are talking to the AI, and AI is validating their very deluded thoughts and ideas. And this is a problem. This is a problem that has been raised, and I believe that the large LLMs have kind of been reprogrammed and updated to not do that or to be more aware of some of those danger signs. But this brings me to one of the other uses of AI now. One of the other things that I'm seeing is that you can subscribe to a service like a coach clone service. If you're a coach, you could be a health coach, nutrition coach, you could be some sort of allied health practitioner, and you can program this clone in your approach, like your methodology, your frameworks, your knowledge, and have that bot essentially be a clone of you that somebody can interact with, somebody can have a conversation with it, much like they have a conversation with ChatGPT, except that this bot is trained to be your clone, like an alternate version of you. So for example, if I have 10 coaching clients and over the weekend, one of them wants to ask me a question, or in between sessions, one of them wants to ask me a question, they could go to clone version of me, like CassBot, and ask CassBot a question, and CassBot could answer the question based on what my approach is to coaching, like would ask appropriate questions and offer insights and directions based on what I have trained it. So there are coaches who are selling, like they might have a premium coaching package that they sell for like thousands of dollars. And for the people who might want to access that person's expertise but can't afford it, they will sell access to this clone version of them. And you might think, is that really ethical? Like, are people really going to pay for that? People do, number one. And secondly, is it really any worse than somebody just going to ChatGPT or Claude with those questions. And, just being validated and just getting whatever that chatbot has scraped from the internet. We all know there's a lot of dubious information out there on the internet. In fact, there's a theory that most of what's on the internet is AI generated. So that's very meta. But they are scraping the internet for their answers and often just getting stuff completely wrong. So if you don't know what to look out for, if you don't have some sort of knowledge, you can get some really dodgy information when you ask a question of ChatGPT. So having a coach clone, like for me to have a CAS clone and to be able to offer that to people, and you'd obviously have to set some parameters and some ethical guidelines in place for it. But on the other hand, isn't that better than them just asking some random chatbot? The other argument that I heard for that was, how is it any different to somebody going and picking up one of my books? If you'd read my book or if you listen to this podcast, how is it any different from going and referring to any other content that I have put out into the world available freely, that is a direct expression of my views and my ideas, because this thing's exactly the same. It's only trained in my ideas. I feed it my ideas, feed it my podcast, feed it my books, feed it, so maybe it's a good idea. Maybe we'll start seeing a CAS clone somewhere down the track. Not on the agenda right now. Don't worry about that. That is not something in my immediate horizon. I'll tell you what is on my immediate horizon, though, what I have been studying and learning how to do. And that is training custom GPTs. So custom GPTs, they sit in the sidebar and anybody can create one. You can create your own. You can go into your ChatGPT right now. I think you might need to have a paid version, and you can create your own custom GPT and you train it. And then it sits in your sidebar. So you can access it anytime, but it has a very specific purpose. It has been trained to do a specific job. And training these assistants is a game changer, but it is a skill. You have to know what you're doing when you train a custom GPT. You can do it in ChatGPT, you can do it in Claude, you can do it in any of them. Gemini, all these ones that are coming out. And what you do is you feed it instructions and you feed it knowledge files. So you give it all of the supporting information that it needs to do its job, and then you tell it very clearly what its job is. For example, I created a custom GPT to write the show notes for my podcast. Now, let's be real about this. The hosting service that I use to host my podcast, the recording platform that I use to record my podcast, these all now have built-in AI functionality, which immediately produces a transcript and some show notes. They all have that built in as a given. The quality of them, variable. But what this one does when I've trained it myself is it knows who I am, what my expertise is, how I want those show notes laid out, what to look for in the transcript. So basically, I give it a transcript and I have trained it to pull out this information in this format with these headings, with these calls to action, and it produces that every time in the same format. I have also trained it that once you've done that, then create an SEO keyword-rich description that I can plug into the summary section on my website. Then give me a blog post that I can take that same content that I've put in that podcast and put it on my website with a link to the player. I can train it to write me an email to say what's on the podcast in a particular way, in a particular format. And I'm not saying that I've done all of this now, but this is what I have started to train and experiment with inside these LLMs, like inside ChatGPT and inside Claude. And what I do is I train them both. You have to have the paid version of both to be able to do that, but train them both and compare what they spit out. Compare which one is better at what kind of tasks so that you can start to know yourself which ones to use for what jobs if you want to have both. Like some people don't, and that's fine. You can just stick with one. I mean, it's $20 a month, I think, roughly $20 a month for a paid version of ChatGPT. For $20 a month, when you have trained these custom AI bots to do very specific tasks exactly the way you want them, that's a bargain if you ask me. The other thing that I have done is created, now this is where it takes some work up front to get this done right, but created a knowledge document that these bots will refer to that is in extensive detail about what I do, how I do it, frameworks, approaches I use, who the people are that I'm talking to. For example, in the new course, in my Beyond Confident course, who is this course for? Who are these people? What are the struggles that they are experiencing? What are they looking to achieve? It is trained in the listener, the person who is in my audience, and my approach to that problem. Then I have fed it all of my blogs, all of my books, every single one of my books, newsletters that I've written in the past, and said, this is how I write. Produce me a document that is a Cass Dunn writing style instruction guide that I can give to any AI bot at any time so that they will write in my style. And I've told it how I want that document produced, how I want it laid out, and it has given me my Cass Dunn writing style instructions. And it is so detailed. It is so accurate in terms of how I write, the tone, like the brand voice, persona, how I typically structure a blog, how I typically would structure a newsletter. And I didn't even know that I necessarily did this. I obviously just do this kind of naturally, but it spots the patterns because I gave it samples and it just picks the patterns, and it has written this instruction guide so that now every time my bot writes something for me, it writes it in my style. I also told it, I'm Australian. Don't give me anything with American spelling, with American references, with college, not uni. I'm Australian. I live in England. So predominantly Australian references, British English is fine, but absolutely no American spelling and no American references in my writing because that's not who I am. So it created me a writing instruction guide in detail listing kinds of words, phrases, spellings to not include. Like, it didn't just say just use Australian English. It gave a list of examples, detail. And so now every time I create a bot that I want to produce something as me, I upload these instructions so that everything it produces is in my voice with my tone, Australian English. This is so time saving. If you are using ChatGPT and saying, can you draft me this blog post on this topic? I want to talk about this, 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 and this. And it gives you something, mind you, bloody full of emojis and line dividers and all sorts. You can also, by the way, put in your instructions, if you haven't already, no em dashes, no emojis, and it will leave them out. And you can actually put that into the settings so that you don't have to type it in every single time. But if you have had that experience where you've got something back, it doesn't really sound like you, and you've had to tweak and edit it or go back to it and say, no, fix this, change that. And then every single time you have to do the same thing again because it doesn't have that supporting documentation to tell it every single time you do this. These are the guidelines. This is the framework. These are the rules. Here's your instructions. While it's time saving to get that help from ChatGPT, you're still wasting so much time going backwards and forwards and being frustrated because it doesn't sound like you. And oftentimes you end up going, oh my God, I can't use this. So you end up doing it yourself anyway. But you don't have to because you can actually use it in a way that is much, much, much more effective. You can have a bot for creating your carousel posts, for example, on Instagram. Again, when it's trained in the work that you do, your approach, let's say you're in functional medicine and you are really into anti-inflammatory diet and gut health, you train it in your protocols, the advice that you would give, what your approach would be, the kind of typical client that comes to see you, the typical problems that they're experiencing, the challenges that they're having, what they've tried, what hasn't worked, what has worked, how your approach is different. You train it in all of that, and then you say, I want to be on Instagram 3 times a week with a carousel post and a image post and a reel. Let's say, I'm just making this up. And you train it to create them for you, and it produces the information that is specific to you, tailored to you, your voice. The time saving with stuff like that. I mean, for me, probably the biggest one, because the biggest time, I'm not going to say waster, but a huge amount of time for me does go into the podcast. Now, I know there's a few ads on the podcast at the moment, but the podcast is not revenue generating for me. The podcast I put out for free at my own cost. For me to sit and talk into the microphone, that's the easy bit. And even the editing, I can kind of whiz through. I'm outsourcing the editing now, but even with me doing the editing, I can whiz through that. But then, good Lord, to then actually tell anybody that there's a podcast episode, to then actually like promote it, to put some SEO behind it, to get it on the internet, to get a blog post, to get it maybe found, to be able to attract new listeners, even just to send an email to the people who have already signed up. The time involved in all of that. And remember, I got ADHD. I'm all over the place. I've got a lot of problems with managing tedious tasks like this. So podcast post-production, to write all the copy, draft the email, a blog post, the SEO, with a click of a button, and have it produce high quality, good output. Like, that is phenomenal. And that's just one example. Inside an online course, you can obviously put in a chat bot, a support bot, and again, you can have it trained in your methodology so that this is high quality, really well trained support bots. If you're in graphic design, for example, you can create a bot, like a custom GPT. You could train it to create a brand profile for a potential customer. You feed it certain information and then you program it to ask certain questions so that it spits out, an initial kind of branding persona for that customer or client. So it gives them a feel for you and your work without you having to spend that time. But what it also does is gives you something that you can offer as a free tool, like a really neat tool that you can offer to people, because people love that kind of stuff. So it's a potential list building, like getting people into your world and getting people onto your email list, but offering something like that they can have access to. There's loads of opportunities for creating lead magnets, I guess. In the content creation space, certainly, here, use my chatbot. What's one I've seen recently? It's assess the quality of your emails, like rate the energy of your emails before you send anything, run it through this chatbot, and it will tell you where it's lacking in energy or could use a bit more pizzazz or something to make it more clickable, readable, emotionally engaging. These are useful tools and people are drawn to them. So they're great for that as well. Also, if I have a chatbot on my website, let's say I did have a CAS coach bot, for example, and I put that on my website. Don't worry, I'm not doing that anytime soon. Never say never. And people start engaging with that chatbot. If it's embedded on my website, I can see what people type. I can see what questions they ask. So, that would obviously all be made very clear for privacy reasons, but that gives me an indication of the kinds of questions people are asking. Like, that can be really helpful. So if it's a custom GPT, right, that lives inside the person's chat GPT account, their OpenAI account. If I created a custom GPT that was, here, take my custom GPT and use it to, in my line of work, maybe it would be use my custom GPT to give you some ideas about how you can manage your nervous system or how you can reframe your unhelpful thoughts or something like that, as a psychologist. And I let you access it, you would access that in your OpenAI account and it lives in your account and I don't see it. Like, I don't see what you type into it, even though I created the GPT. So what I'm talking about here is like these chat bots that you can create. This is completely outside of ChatGPT. This would be on another platform, like these clone coach things. And I embedded it on my website. Well, then those ones allow you to see the questions that people are asking. So that can be really helpful for you to gain a better and a deeper understanding of the kind of people who are coming to your website and the kind of issues that they're facing, so that then you can be working on creating solutions to serve them. Then you use your expertise as the professional to use that to give you some insight into what they're experiencing so that you can then serve them in a better way. So again, you can go, oh, dodgy, that sounds a bit unethical, but potentially really helpful for the person using it if they're getting instant insights and, they can't access you. You can't text me at 10 o'clock on Tuesday night when you're spiraling, but you could potentially go to a bot and say, I'm having a hard time, and get some actual evidence-based, professionally sort of grounded conversation back from a clone of me. And I would then have access to the kind of thing that you're struggling with, which would help me to be able to help you. That's sort of next level. I'm not doing that. That was just a bit of a tangent. But using AI to automate repetitive, regular tasks so that I can be in more places at once, be present on social media, which I'm not, so that I can be sending emails, which I have not been doing well at all, so that I can stay connected in that way, get the podcast out on time, get a blog post out so that more people hear the podcast. Do all of that without draining all of my time and my life force energy, then that frees up so much space for me to do what I do best, to be creative, to work with more clients one-on-one, to be more present, to have time to learn and to continue developing what I do instead of never having time because I'm so bogged down in all of this admin stuff. So I have mentioned before that I'm really focusing in the new year with my Beyond Confident course. I'm really going to be looking at how I can support small business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, service providers who are stretched and overwhelmed and who probably have got ADHD. Let's be real about it. These people who struggle with the self-doubt and the second guessing, and they're trying to do all the things and they're a bit scatterbrained and scattergun in their approach. They've got no clarity. I want to work with those people because I feel like they need the support and I can relate to them. And I feel very much like this AI, the support that you can potentially get from a really well-crafted, effective AI support structure without having to spend money on hiring people and all of that, like I said, this is so helpful for nervous system regulation. Like this is so helpful for reducing executive function tax, for reducing decision fatigue, just reducing this paralyzed kind of stuckness when you're sitting and you're just staring at the screen and if you've got 10 things to do, but you don't know which one to do first. And so you end up doing none of them. Like this is a game changer. So part of the reason that I have been so heavily invested in learning and understanding this, it's not just for myself. It's that I see this being a value add, this being almost a third pillar in my program that I teach for stressed out, overwhelmed entrepreneurs who are riddled with self-doubt and burning themselves out with their overwork and their perfectionism and all of the things that that I talk about. The first pillar being the inner work, obviously, the identity work, the nervous system work, the healing, the emotional healing work. That's the inner work that needs to be done. That's pillar number one. Pillar number two being, as applied to small business, how do you simplify and create a little more clarity in your business to reduce your overwhelm? Who is your client? What are you charging? How are you setting boundaries? How do you change your working life to be able to work less, make more, create consistent revenue with calm and clarity and confidence, really focusing on that business setup side of it. So that's the inner work and the outer work. And I think that this AI support system is almost like a third pillar. At the very least, it's going to be an add-on. At the very least, it's going to be like a bonus training. It may not be substantial enough that it constitutes an entire third pillar to the program, but I absolutely will be teaching this to people who come into my program who are stretched and overwhelmed and struggling, who I know will benefit. Your nervous system will benefit. Your brain, like the space and the calm and the clarity that you will achieve when you outsource to your bot some of these tasks that you do repeatedly in your business, and how you systematize this so that you have some structure and some routine that doesn't require you to remember to do it, that doesn't require you to, to manually operationalize it, I guess. So that's where I'm at. First me with the learning and the practicing. And trust me, I've been deep in AI world. And secondly, teaching and tagging it on to the work that I am already doing in my confidence work, but possibly also just offering something as a standalone. And I don't pretend to be the world's leading expert on this topic. I have done a lot of learning recently in a very short space of time. So if you would be interested in coming along to a workshop or something, I'm more than happy to walk you through some of what I have done and what might be of benefit to you. So I'll put a link down in the show notes if you want to put your name down to hear about anything that I might be doing going forward and into the new year. If you're looking at setting up some systems in your own business, then I think I would be really keen to share it with you and hear what you think, if that's the world that you're in, if you fit that sort of demographic of that small business owner, or like, I think it's useful and beneficial to anybody, but I'm always thinking of the stressed out solopreneur who struggles with self-doubt, burnt out, broke, perfectionist, and people pleasing. So we are going for much more calm, clarity, consistency, and especially consistency with that income and that calm, grounded confidence. If you're keen on that, then also absolutely hit me up, because when that launches in the new year, that will be a pretty low key launch while I'm refining that new program, that sort of updated and expanded program. So if you want to hear about it, absolutely hit me up. That's it. This has gone on for too long. I'm a yabba chatterbox, but that is how I have been using AI in my business and how I will continue to use it. And I'd be always keen to hear your thoughts. So let me know if you've been using it. What are you using it for? What can you teach me? And in the meantime, I can't wait to catch you next week for another fabulous episode of Crappy to Happy.